Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. As much as I love talking about business and how technology is transforming multiple industries, I'm equally as passionate about sharing tech startup stories on this show too. And I think that the stories that we tell, that we listen to, and that we share can have a profound effect on somebody listening anywhere in the world that is nervously thinking very carefully about taking their very first steps as an entrepreneur or startup founder. And Johnathan Grzybowski is the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder of a company called Penji, which is an on-demand graphic design service that is fast, simple, and affordable. And after experiencing firsthand how difficult it was to find talented graphic designers for his business, Johnathan and his co-founder launched Penji back in 2017. Their initial goal was to simply provide an innovative solution and make essential tools and resources more accessible and affordable for entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders. But I don't want to reveal any spoilers here before we get him on. That's not how it works. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Philadelphia, or just outside Philadelphia, should I say, so we can speak with Johnathan Grzybowski, the Chief Marketing Officer and co-founder at Penji. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Johnathan. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to share my story. My name's Johnathan. I'm one of the co-founders of Penji. Penji is an on-demand graphic design subscription, all at one flat monthly rate. I would say, to tell people a little bit about me, I would say that I'm defined by a word that I just constantly keeps coming back to me, and it's just grit. I say that my career is the summation of me being extremely gritty in what I do, how I operate. I like to get my hands dirty, like virtually hands dirty, because physically I don't like to get my hands dirty, but virtually I like to just sink my teeth into things. I'm obsessed with the right processes and the procedures and the experience behind how people feel and how people are able to obtain the knowledge of who we are and how can we make it better. So there'll be more questions that kind of go on as to who I am, but that in its shell, I'm just a gritty, hardworking professional that just wants to see our team succeed and the company succeed.
Getting your hands dirty virtually. I might have to use that one. I'm going to lift that one from you. That's a fantastic.
Well, it's funny. I came up with that one just now on the spot, because the other day, a couple of friends of mine, they're talking about cars, and I know nothing about cars. So they're like getting their hands dirty. I'm like, I'd rather just stick to my keyboard. We're good.
Now, when I first read about Penji, immediately for me, it felt like Netflix for online graphic design with its flat monthly rate. But can you just tell the listeners a little bit more about what Penji is and what makes your services different from everything else out there?
Yeah, I would say that's actually a pretty good comparison, and Netflix for graphic design. So we want to fundamentally change the way that people receive graphic design. In my humble opinion, I think graphic design, quality graphics, is the quintessential differentiation, the most important differentiation in any business. You can go from a logo that's like, think about all the brands that are recognizable, and they all have some type of brand, color scheme, guideline, logo, whatever it may be, that you instantly remember once you're able to see that. And so I personally started in a digital marketing agency several years ago, and one of the hardest things to that we found was finding graphic design talent. And I myself, we talked a little bit about Adobe before the show, but I ended up doing graphic design for about 2-3 years. Now, if you were to ever look at my graphic design abilities, it is awful. I am terrible at graphic design, yet I was still stuck doing the graphic designs because that's what was needed for the business to move it forward. And so once we realized that a lot of other people also had the same problem as finding a reliable graphic design team, finding a dependable design team, and then not to mention adding the element of it, making it affordable, because every graphic designer has different prices based off of their skill level and et cetera. So we wanted to just completely level that and give people more of an opportunity to receive graphic design. So the way it works is you go on a website, you sign up. It's a platform that we've created. Everything is digitized in a way where you don't have to send emails anymore. You don't have to get on phone calls to communicate. We have the communication. We have the revision process. We have the downloadable process. We have I think I said communication, where you can communicate with your team, all on a platform that you could use as often or as little as you like on a monthly basis.
Fantastic. And on this tech podcast, I do enjoy hearing more about the actual startup story behind a company and hearing a little bit more about that grit that you mentioned. So can you tell me more about how you experienced firsthand how difficult it was to find talented graphic designers for your business, and the actual story behind Penji and how you got where you are today? Yeah,
Penji was actually created by accident. And I say that because I was an agency founder. And my co-founder started a publication, and the two of us combined, we were in a city called Camden, New Jersey, that is I'd say just an underserved community. Yeah. And we were asked a couple questions like, hey, like, why are you guys here? What is your purpose behind being inside of Camden? And we didn't have a good enough answer. And so what we realized is that I had an agency background in sales and he had a tech background, and we came together in order to create this idea behind Penji. So when we first started, we had 0 customers, just like everybody else, but we interviewed close to 200 plus people in order to get the foundation of if this project has substance. Does this project going to work? Because we're not going to embark on a new journey if there isn't a guarantee that whatever it is that we do has the highest level of success. So by us reaching out to these people and asking them, what are the pain points that you have in your business? And a large majority of them, believe it or not, all said that they needed graphic design support. And then that's kind of when we realized that we were onto something. And then we got one customer, and then one customer turned into 10. And then 10 turned into 50, and 50 turned into et cetera, what we are today, which is a 42, 43 person company. So it wasn't our startup story isn't necessarily one where you have a good idea and you need funding and you ask for millions of dollars and you get it. We're self-funded. We're cash flow positive. We've never raised a single round. And it's something that I'm personally extremely proud of, because it again goes back to that grit. We're going to constantly tweak. We're going to constantly change and repurpose as much as we possibly can in order for us to get it right. And in addition to that, we have such an amazing team that works their butt off just like we do and believes in the same things that we do, and again works extremely hard, and together we kind of just move the company forward as a team, one step at a time.
So what was the goal for your business when you first set it up, and what was your mission? And have you actually drifted from that mission at all, or is it just a case of tweaking and evolving as you go?
Well, I think that's actually something that I think about quite often, which is like, what is the purpose? And I think in the very beginning, and this is a lot of problems that most startups have, is that you don't understand your story. Like you want to create something just to create it, but there's no real meaning and purpose behind it. And I think it took us, I'd say close to, even still to this day, it's not 100%, but I think that in the very beginning, we kind of just like said something just to say it. And we spent a lot of time figuring out what to say. But then that wasn't necessarily the thing that we all believed in. We kind of just said it just to say it. And so we kind of came together and we looked at our values. Like, what do you find important? What do I find important? How about you? And we asked the collective team, and we realized that the summation of all that was helping people who help others. And that's kind of like our mission to this day, is that idea behind, we want to help people who help others, whether that's in a business, whether that is a B2B business, whether that's a business selling to B2C, whether that's a nonprofit or a university or whatever it may be. that wasn't necessarily the exact line, but it was still a theme within the business. It took us a while to get there, but it's something that I'm really proud of just like, it's a lot of self-reflection and deep conversations. It's thinking like, why am I doing this in the first place? Because entrepreneurship is a really dark and lonely place. It's not it's not what you see on Instagram, but at least my definition of that isn't on Instagram. I think the real definition of entrepreneurship is that of, again, kind of like what we talked about, fine tuning and tweaking, but just making sure that you're still moving forward every single day.
I'm so glad you brought that up there. That it's not what you see on Instagram. We've all seen those people that will rent a car to just take a photo in a private jet and then get off again. It doesn't work like that, does it?
It doesn't work like that at all. And if you think that that's what it is, I like to, I mean, not to shoot on dreamers and ideas, but like everybody has a good idea. But like what I've found is if your idea, like this idea, when we were an agency, I selfishly was like, I want to be a marketer and I want to work with all these top businesses and et cetera, et cetera. And then probably a year and a half, 2 years into the agency, I just realized I was like, that doesn't excite me. I'm not helping people. I'm not doing anything of purpose. And then, then Penji comes along and you have this like what I think is a really disrupting idea to the industry. Now your purpose changes because it has volume. Your idea has weight. And so if you're coming up with an idea or a business, there's going to be a time where that idea, like you just want to quit it because you're not passionate about it anymore. But the more you're able to like believe in it and have purpose behind it, then I think the idea will have a little bit more legs for you.
So if we do have any startup founders listening and your words are really resonating with them right now, could you maybe share a few challenges that you encountered along the way and maybe talk about how you overcome them too, using that grit and determination?
I would say organization is incredibly important, and that's in like your business life and personal life. Time management is also really important. I definitely think I've disrespected that quite a bit, even to this day, even as of yesterday. But I would also say, so organization, are you able to understand what's most important? Because a lot of people, and again, I'm subject to this, you just go to work and you put your headphones in, you get work in, but like, is that the thing that's going to move the business forward? The answer is probably not. If you don't answer email all day, is that really going to hurt you? And I've trained myself to not do it. I deleted social media off my phone, so I'm just on my computer. There's a lot of other things that I've done as well, but like you need to be able to you need to be organized in a collective fashion. You need to understand what's going to move the business forward. Those aren't necessarily techniques that you can do today. It takes a really long time in order to kind of train your mind, your body, and your soul. I think another obstacle is just your ego. I think another obstacle is something along the lines of just like talking to your team members and stuff like that. Delegation is important. Proper goal setting is really important. I think a large majority of the time my ego got in the way of like really important conversations because I wanted it this way and that wasn't done that way. And so you kind of have to have a conversation with yourself and say, well, why did I react that way? And it's just like an insecurity that we all have within ourselves. And so how can you just remove that ego and just let the other person either succeed or fail on their own, and then be able to come back and kind of maybe not clean up, but more so just guide in a way where you can allow them to succeed even more.
And here we are now, of course, and Penji has been named as a top startup to watch. I think that was in Philadelphia Magazine and also mentioned in major publications such as Success Magazine. So what do you take from that recognition? Is it like a nod in your direction that you're doing something right? Or what do you take from that?
I think it's definitely validation. I think the most important, like on paper, right? If you look at us, like if you were to look at our stats, and I'm a basketball person. So like if you look at our stats and we have the starting five, on paper, we would be the worst team in the league. That's just the way that it is. It's just, we're not qualified to do any of this, but here we are doing it. So when I see that type of stuff on publications, it's just validation that, we're on the right track. It's validation that we're doing the right things. We're helping the right people. We're providing a good experience and the right solution to our customers. And any type of victory, even if it's like me being on your podcast, like this is you allowing me to share our story is a huge honor that I'm greatly appreciative of. And that recognition, again, small, large, whatever, it adds to your mental psyche, and it just makes the day just even if it's a little bit better, it makes it better.
And as for yourself, Jonathan, there'll be a lot of people listening thinking, this guy's got a great podcasting voice. And there's a pretty good reason for that, because I believe you're the host of the Blind Entrepreneurship podcast. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and why you decided to launch your own podcast?
I think podcasting, we could probably have a whole nother podcast about us podcasting, right?
Yeah,
I think podcasting allows you the ability to get really emotional and connect with an individual on a level that is unparalleled to a basic business meeting. I think podcasting is the future of how we communicate in terms of like sales. Maybe not the exact future, but definitely leading in that direction. I think when I started the podcast, I did it because I didn't know anybody in business. And I did it because I wanted to meet people and give people a platform so they could become my friends. And by them becoming my friends, I'm now able to, again, share their story, make them look good, but at the same time, build a rapport with these individuals. And then the last thing would just be, well, I didn't know anything about business either. I didn't even know anybody. I didn't know anything about business. So if I learn from other people's failures, then I'm more inclined to take something from them to apply to my own business and life. So that was why I did it. And you're way ahead of me. I'm only at like 250 or something like that. But I mean, yeah, it's a great experience.
So many of the reasons you mentioned there are exactly the reason that I started this podcast as well. And I think it's so liberating, isn't it? Because I think for years nobody had a voice, but whereas now, if a magazine won't write an article about you and your startup and your business, you can publish your own radio show and give not only just talking about yourself, because that's not the concept at all. Of course, it's getting other people on and learning from each other, and I think it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think even a step further, if there's something bothering you in your day, you can, I mean, even if it's not the exact show, but you could jump on on your podcast, record a quick video or a quick audio segment of you ranting about a particular topic you're passionate about, post it, and then it's like therapy, so to speak. But I also want to add another thing, because we have two podcasts, believe it or not. So I have a podcast for myself, and then our business has a podcast, and it's called Shades of Success. And I want to give that plugs because I think more businesses should be incorporating podcasting into their day-to-day. And so Sakina, who's the host, she actually shares the stories of other people who have different shades, color of their skin, different backgrounds, because diversity, inclusion is something that is incredibly important to us here at Penji. And the ability to share other people's stories, giving them, and again, another spotlight in order to share their mission and vision, I think is a great way for a business to grow their social mission out to the public.
And your passion for community and putting that spotlight and that platform out for others really shines through. And I've recently read that Penji is becoming the go-to for Philly's startup community. Can you tell me more about that and how you got involved?
We believe that the next 1,000 customers of ours is going to be located within like a 30-mile radius of where we're located. And we are a global company. We have clients in the UK. We have clients in the United States. I mean, literally all over the world. There's no geography bound. And we do a couple of things for our community. So number one, if you're a nonprofit if you're a nonprofit in Philadelphia or Camden, you can get Penji for $1 a month. And that's our way of giving back to the community by, again, helping those who help others. That's number one. We also do other things within our community in the educational content, conversations, and things like that. We also hire, going back to Camden, we hire students and residents in Camden and provide them jobs and internships opportunities. And so all of these collective things, when you say, why are we the go-to? Well, we're the go-to because we have that community consciousness. We're giving back by offering jobs and internships to the residents and students of Camden and somewhat of the surrounding regions. And we're also just being able to provide a good service because there isn't many businesses that are like ours, especially in this region. So if you need, and it's easy to sign up, like you literally sign up and you can get started in 3 minutes and you receive your design in under 48 hours. Like that's unheard of. That process is insane. So yeah, I would say that's collectively why we're the go-to for in our region.
So, I mean, you've been on a fantastic journey, but what's next for Penji? Is there anything else you can share with us about that road ahead?
There's a lot of things. We're about to release our newest update to Penji, something that we've been working on over a year now, which I'm incredibly excited for everybody to see because it's just, again, going to further solidify our position in history as that disruptor of the graphic design industry. And so by the time of this conversation, you might actually be able to get it live. Not sure yet. Not entirely sure. There's still a little bit of bugs that we're figuring out, but yeah, it's just that in itself is probably the biggest accomplishment that we've made, and that's what's next.
And before I let you go, could I just ask you remind everyone listening the name of those 2 podcasts again, where they can find Penji online, and also just reach out and contact a member of your team if they've got any questions? Yeah,
you can go to penji.co, penji.co. The name of the podcast on the business is Shades of Success. You could search that on iTunes. And my podcast is called Blind Entrepreneurship, if you so choose. But we're here to talk about Penji. And so if you like the story, if you like what we believe in, if you like what you've heard thus far and gotten any value of it, and you want to try us out, just head over to penji.co and get started today.
Well, I love what you're doing with Penji, but I also love your whole ethos about what you're doing there at the company and giving a little bit back to the community. And I'm quite conscious that we're going to have people listening to this conversation all over the world. It might not be this week, next month, or even next year, but they're going to come across this. And I think there's a lot of people that they've got a great idea. They want to launch their own business, but they talk themselves out of it. And they look at that piece of paper and say, well, on paper, I can't do this. But the reality is, if you just do it, you can do anything. And I hope that your words are going to really inspire another generation of startup founders out there too, because you really can do it. But more than anything, just thanks so much for coming on and sharing that incredibly powerful story today.
Thank you so much, Neil. Appreciate it.
What an amazing story. And I love what Johnathan is doing here to encourage others. And I don't want to go all Gary Vaynerchuk on you here, but the secret to success, I think, is just doing it, regardless of what the odds of success or what a piece of paper says. Just go for it. And some people will talk themselves out of doing almost anything and end up going and playing 5 hours on the PlayStation or binge watching their favourite show on Netflix. All of these things, of course, are completely fine. But when I look at Johnathan and his story, what stood out for me was the sacrifices he made and even removed social media from his phone. And let's face it, endlessly scrolling down, what value does that bring to your life? And by removing that distraction, he's a startup founder and runs not 1, but 2 podcasts too. I think it's important to highlight that anybody listening, whoever you are, wherever you are, you can do all this too. And if you're a business or a startup founder listening and wanting to launch their own podcast, but maybe don't have the time or inclination to get involved and getting your hands virtually dirty, as Johnathan said, setting up an RSS feed and editing audio files together, if that side of things just don't interest you, remember, you don't have to do that yourself either. For example, one of the services I offer my clients, I'm sorry for the shameless plug, but it just seemed like a good moment to bring it up, is helping listeners launch their own podcast. And I always say to each and every one of them, you just go out there and record great conversations and then bring those audio files back to me. Let me worry about splicing intro and outro music and putting it all together and submitting to iTunes and Spotify. You don't have to do everything yourself. If you want to do it yourself, that's cool also, of course. And if any of that resonates with you and anything that you would like to get involved with or just need pointing in the right direction, remember, I'm always happy to help everyone listening, and you can email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. And also, if you have any stories or insights around the world of tech startups, business, technology, anything at all. If you want to share them with me on this show, or even off it and just have a personal conversation with me, again, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You get me on Twitter @NeilCHughes and Instagram NeilCHughes and even LinkedIn @NeilCHughes. There's a common theme developing there, isn't there? And finally, if you have enjoyed today's episode, please also remember to rate and review the show. I know you hear that on every single podcast you listen to, and there is a good reason for that, because in particular the iTunes algorithm is something we're all a slave to here, and the more ratings and reviews really does help the show grow and evolve too. But I'm afraid that's it for today. That's another episode that we've just reached the end of, but have no fear. I'm going to return tomorrow with another fantastic guest, and hopefully you'll be there to join me too. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.